She stirred the sauce in the kitchen, filling the silence with the familiar aroma of spices. The house was empty, as always, until an unexpected sound broke the stillness. Footsteps upstairs. Frozen, she looked up, her heart racing, unable to believe what she was seeing. Each step seemed to carry the weight of years of absence, memories, and emotions. What was before her promised to turn that ordinary night into something unforgettable. Hello, my friends. I am Linda, and this is Linda Love Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. The smell of seasoning filled the kitchen as Helen stirred the sauce in the same way she had done for over 20 years. Her fingers knew the perfect rhythm, neither too fast that it might burn the bottom of the pan, nor too slow to allow lumps to form. This was one of the many rituals she maintained, even though now she cooked only for one person. The two-story house, with its faded light yellow walls and its spacious rooms, seemed to have grown in recent years. She recalled when every inch of space was contested, Robert's shoes always in the middle of the hallway, Emily's schoolbooks scattered across the dining table, toys appearing in the most unlikely places. Now, each step echoed against the wooden floor, reminding her that she was alone. The wall clock, a wedding gift from her mother, showed 7:15 in the evening. Helen watched the hands move with the same precision as always. Time didn't stop, even though her life seemed suspended in a strange limbo between the past and an undefined future. Sometimes she wondered if Robert had taken with him not just his clothes and books, but also her ability to move forward. "I should have used less salt," she murmured to herself, tasting the sauce. Talking to herself had become a habit in recent years. It wasn't due to a lack of sanity, but an attempt to fill the silence that threatened to suffocate her. On the refrigerator, a magnet held Emily's last letter, sent almost a year ago from some distant city where she had found a job. There wasn't much in it, just basic information about how she was adapting to the new place, vague promises of future visits and a hurried signature. Helen read those lines almost daily, as if she could extract more meaning from them with each new reading. The separation from Robert 8 years ago had been a hard but predictable blow after so many years of gradual estrangement. But Emily's departure 3 years ago had been different, a wound that refused to fully heal. It wasn't just a daughter leaving home to build her own life. It had been an escape after months of increasingly intense arguments, slammed doors, and harsh words neither could take back afterward. Helen turned off the heat and covered the pot, letting the sauce rest while she prepared the pasta. In the pantry, she found a nearly empty package of pasta, another reminder that she needed to go shopping. Before, stocking the fridge and cabinets had been almost a daily obligation. Now, the food lasted weeks, and she was often surprised by the mouldy bread forgotten or the sour milk in the refrigerator. The water started to boil, and Helen broke the pasta in half before throwing it into the pot, a habit that annoyed Robert. "Pasta was made to be long, Helen," he would say, with that crooked smile she loved so much. Little memories like these would pop up at the most unexpected moments, causing a sharp pang of nostalgia. It was funny how memory worked, Helen thought. She could perfectly recall several happy moments, but couldn't exactly remember what had triggered the final fight with Emily. She knew it involved her daughter's decision to drop out of college, a boyfriend Helen didn't like, and harsh words about how her daughter was repeating her mother's mistakes. But the details had dissolved, leaving only the pain of the outcome. Her daughter leaving with a backpack, saying she needed to breathe away from that house. The pasta was ready. Helen drained it carefully, watching the steam spiral up to the kitchen ceiling. When she returned the pot to the stove and began mixing the sauce into the pasta, a strange sound made her stop. Footsteps. Upstairs. The sound was unmistakable, the specific creak of the loose floorboard in the hallway leading to Emily's old room. A shiver ran down her spine. Helen stood still, the wooden spoon suspended in the air, droplets of sauce slowly dripping back into the pot. She had never been a fearful person, but living alone had taught her to be cautious. The cell phone was on the counter, a few steps away. The nearest neighbours were not at home. She had seen the couple leaving earlier with suitcases, probably to visit their children in the capital. The footsteps continued, quieter now, as if whoever was upstairs was trying not to make noise. Helen felt her heart racing, her mouth suddenly dry. She put the spoon down on the counter and, driven by an impulse she couldn't explain, walked to the foot of the stairs. "Is someone there?" Her voice came out firmer than she expected, echoing through the house. The footsteps stopped for a moment, then started again, this time approaching the stairs. Helen thought about running to the phone, screaming for help, grabbing the kitchen knife she had left on the cutting board. But something kept her frozen, looking at the top of the stairs where the hallway light was on, casting a gradually growing shadow. And then, what she saw made her heart stop for a moment. Emily was standing at the top of the stairs, with a small handbag. Her dark hair was shorter than Helen remembered, and there was something different about her face. Not just the evident weariness, but a maturity that hadn't been there the last time they saw each other. "Hi, Mom," said Emily, her voice almost a whisper. Helen felt her legs give way. She leaned on the stair railing, unable to formulate a response. It was as if all the conversations she had imagined over the years, all the words she had rehearsed for when she finally reunited with her daughter, had evaporated from her mind. "The back door was unlocked," Emily explained, stepping down one step. "You always forget to lock it." Helen noticed that her daughter was holding something in her hand, the small spare key that was always hidden in the garden's plant pot. Another old habit she never abandoned, even living alone. "I was going to call you," Emily continued, stepping down a few more steps. "But I thought you might, I don't know, maybe not answer." Her voice faltered on the last word, and Helen recognized the vulnerability her daughter always tried to hide. "You are here," was all Helen could say, the words coming out in gasps. It was neither a question nor a full statement, just the acknowledgement of a reality that seemed unreal. Emily descended to the middle of the stairs and stopped, as if an invisible barrier prevented her from continuing. Her eyes, so like her father's, studied Helen's face with a mixture of apprehension and hope. "I tried to stay away," she said, her voice now steadier. "I tried to build a new life, as if I could just erase everything." She paused, running a free hand through her short hair. "But I couldn't." Helen felt the weight of 3 years of absence, of unanswered calls, of messages replied to with short and impersonal phrases. She remembered the nights she would stay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering where Emily was, if she was safe, if she thought about her as much as she thought about her daughter. "Did you have dinner?" Helen asked, surprising herself with the banality of the question given the magnitude of the moment. A small smile appeared on Emily's face. "That's your first question after so long. If I've had dinner?" Helen felt her face flush, but then she noticed that there was no criticism in her daughter's voice, just a gentle acknowledgement of how her mother had always been. "I made pasta," Helen continued. "There's enough for 2 people. "You always cook for an army, even living alone," replied Emily, finally descending the remaining steps. Now they were face to face, separated by just a few steps. Helen could smell her daughter's perfume, different from what she used to wear, more woody and less floral. She noticed the dark circles under her eyes, the small new scar near her eyebrow, the absence of a wedding ring on her left ring finger. "James and I are no longer together," said Emily, following her mother's gaze. "For 6 months now." Helen nodded slowly. She had never really liked James, the man Emily had left college for and moved far away with. He always seemed too controlling, full of big plans that never materialized, but Helen knew that expressing that now would be a mistake. "I'm sorry," she said sincerely, because regardless of her opinion about the son-in-law, she knew that the pain of a separation was not something she would wish for her daughter. "I should have listened to you," Emily admitted, lowering her eyes. "About a lot of things." Helen shook her head. I also made my mistakes, she replied. Maybe I tried to prevent you from making the same ones I did, but in the end, everyone needs to make their own path. The smell of food reached them, reminding them of the dinner cooling in the kitchen. Helen indicated the way with a gentle gesture. Shall we eat? We can talk better at the table. In the kitchen, the wall clock was now showing almost 8 o'clock. Helen served 2 plates of pasta, placed the leftover bread from the previous day on the table, along with 2 glasses and a bottle of wine she had been saving for months for a special occasion that never seemed to arrive. As they ate, the initial silence gradually gave way to a hesitant conversation, like 2 people relearning each other's language. Emily talked about the job she lost when the relationship ended, about how she had spent the last few months hopping from city to city, looking for something she herself couldn't even define. Helen talked about her routine, the gardening courses she had started taking, the books she read during sleepless nights. You changed the curtain, Emily observed, looking at the kitchen window. The other one tore in the wash, Helen explained. This one was bought on sale. It's not as pretty, but... It's prettier than the old one, Emily interrupted. It matches the kitchen better. A small compliment, something trivial, but it made Helen feel a wave of warmth in her chest. She watched her daughter eat, noticing how Emily still pushed the olives to the side of the plate, a childhood habit that remained. How long are you... Helen began, leaving the question incomplete, fearful of the answer. I don't know, Emily admitted, staring at the plate. I have no plans. I don't have anything planned at the moment. She raised her eyes, meeting her mother's. But if it's a problem, I can... No, Helen interrupted her, perhaps more forcefully than she intended. It's not a problem. This is your home too. She hesitated for a moment. It always has been. There was a pause, and then Emily placed the fork on the table, her hands slightly trembling. I said horrible things before I left. Helen felt her throat tighten at the memory. We both did. But I left, Emily continued, her voice breaking. I left and barely kept in touch. I wanted to prove that I could manage on my own, that I didn't need your advice or... She stopped, taking a deep breath. But the truth is I did. All this time I needed my mother, and I was too proud to admit it. Helen reached out across the table, lightly touching her daughter's fingers. I needed you too, she admitted, more than you can imagine. Emily hesitated for a moment, then entwined her fingers with her mother's. It was a simple gesture, as they had done hundreds of times before, while crossing the street when Emily was little, in waiting rooms of doctors' offices, on nights when the girl had nightmares. But now, after so long, it carried the weight of a reconciliation not yet fully pronounced. Can I stay? Emily asked, her voice almost a whisper. Helen squeezed her daughter's hand, feeling tears form in her eyes. Your room is just the way you left it, she replied. Only cleaner. A hesitant smile appeared on Emily's face, accompanied by a tear that she quickly wiped away. Do you still have that awful quilt Grandma made? It's stored on top of the wardrobe, Helen said, smiling as well, along with the teddy bear you swore you threw away at 12. Emily laughed, a sound Helen hadn't heard in so long, it almost made her cry again. Did you know I used to hide it under the pillow? Mothers know everything, Helen replied, trying to sound mysterious but failing when her voice faltered on the last word. They finished eating in a more comfortable silence, interspersed with small comments and shared memories. When the plates were empty and the wine bottle was half full, Emily got up to help clean the kitchen, a familiar ritual that seemed to return naturally. As they put away the last utensils, Helen noticed that the house no longer seemed so large or empty. The sounds were different, 2 people breathing, moving, existing in the same space. The silence was no longer oppressive but comfortable, the kind of silence that exists between people who don't need to fill every moment with words. Later, when Emily went upstairs to take a bath, Helen stayed in the living room, flipping through a photo album she kept always at hand. She found a picture of Emily at 5 years old, with uneven braids that Helen had made. In the picture, the girl was smiling, showing the gap from her missing front teeth, proud of a drawing she was holding. Helen ran her fingers over the photograph, feeling a mix of nostalgia and gratitude. The girl in that photo had grown up, faced her own battles, made mistakes, and learned from them, just as Helen had also done throughout her life. The sound of water running upstairs was comforting, like a familiar song that hadn't been heard in a long time. Helen closed the album and looked at the staircase, where her daughter had descended hours before, bringing back not only her physical presence but also the possibility of healing for wounds they both carried. She knew it wouldn't be easy. There were many difficult conversations ahead, stories to share, pains to acknowledge. But that night, as the house became a home again, Helen remembered all the times she prayed for them to reconcile, even when hope seemed small. Every silent prayer, every plea in her heart, seemed to finally echo in that reconciliation. Helen then understood a truth that had always been there, waiting to be rediscovered. True love, whether between mother and daughter, friends or lovers, does not disappear with time or distance. It waits, patiently, for an opportunity to bloom again. And despite everything, a parent's home always remains a safe harbour, a place we can return to, a welcoming space that nurtures the soul and comforts even the oldest pains. And sometimes that opportunity begins with footsteps upstairs on an ordinary night that suddenly becomes extraordinary. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.